LeBron James may have just shattered his own legacy with one reckless remark about Michael Jordan in a single podcast comment. He tried to rewrite history, and instead, wrote himself right out of it. One statement, one misguided take, and just like that, the GOAT debate might be over.
So I tuned into a clip from Man Down Sports, shout out to them, and they were essentially reacting to some comments that LeBron James made somewhere, but I believe it was connected to his podcast, Mind the Game. And essentially, as they were talking, LeBron was speaking to the audience, and then he went off kind of like on this tangent and started talking about like super teams. And then in the midst of his rant, he then talks about, and Michael Jordan, also the Chicago Bulls were a super team. And I'm like, yo, bro, what do we?
LeBron James has just unleashed a Jordan comment so outrageous, it almost defies belief. The king made a claim so desperate, so wildly inaccurate, that it may have single-handedly destroyed whatever remained of his GOAT case. It happened during a recent episode of his podcast, Mind the Game. At first, everything sounded normal. LeBron was talking about how basketball has evolved, how big threes have always existed in NBA history. Then, out of nowhere, he dropped the bomb, casually calling Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls a super team. Yes, you heard that right. The man criticized his entire career for ring chasing and building super teams is now trying to drag the greatest player of all time down to his own level. And here's where it turns brutal, because LeBron's claim is not only historically false, it is legacy suicide. If Jordan really had a super team and still dominated the league, then what is LeBron's excuse for underperforming when he had actual prime super teams at his disposal? Let's break this down. LeBron was specifically referring to the 1997-98 Bulls, the team that went 72-10 and won the championship. Here's that so-called super team roster: Michael Jordan, 35 years old; Scottie Pippen, 31 years old and battling back injuries; Dennis Rodman, 37 years old, more famous for his off-court chaos than his on-court dominance; Steve Kerr, Ron Harper, Luke Longley, and a bench full of aging role players barely holding on in the league. Now compare that to LeBron's Miami Heat. LeBron was 25 years old, in his absolute prime. Dwayne Wade was 28 years old, also in his prime. Chris Bosh was 26 years old, at his peak. Three superstars under 30, all at the height of their powers, choosing to team up for maximum dominance. See the difference? A super team is not just a group of good players at his prime, superstars sacrificing to join forces and create an unfair advantage. Jordan's Bulls were veterans fighting off decline. LeBron's Heat were a loaded, fully armed war machine. LeBron's attempt to blur that line? It just backfired hard.
The 2011 Miami Heat roster consisted of Joel Anthony, Carlos Arroyo, Mike Bibby, Chris Bosh, Mario Chalmers, Eric Dampier, Udonis Haslem, Eddie Jones, Juan Howard, Zrunas Ilgauskas. I didn't even know he was on the team. LeBron James, James Jones, Jamal McGlure, Mike Miller, Jerry Stackhouse, Dwayne Wade. That was the 2010-2011 team.
Let us be clear about what a real super team actually looks like. Take the 2010 to 2011 Miami Heat. The roster LeBron James now seems desperate to distance himself from. It featured LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Ray Allen, and a carefully constructed supporting cast designed to amplify their strengths. Every core piece was in peak form. LeBron was fresh off one of his best seasons in Cleveland. Wade was only a few years removed from leading Miami to a title and was still an elite force. Bosh was an all-star willing to sacrifice his personal stats for the bigger picture that is the definition of a super team. Three Hall of Fame caliber players in their prime, willingly joining forces, taking pay cuts, and forming a juggernaut that could overwhelm the league. And yet, even that team did not win every year. They reached 4 straight finals but walked away with only 2 titles. Now compare that to Michael Jordan's so-called super team of aging veterans that went an unblemished 6-0 in the finals. Here is the truth. LeBron's comment was no casual slip. It was a calculated move to reshape the story around his career. He is tired of hearing that his titles came during the super team era. He is tired of critics pointing out that he had to join forces with other superstars to win, so he tries to rewrite history by pulling Jordan down to his own level. The thinking is simple: if Jordan had a super team too, the criticism loses its bite. But there is a fatal flaw in that strategy. It boomerangs right back at him, because if both men had super teams, why did Jordan's go undefeated in the finals while LeBron's finished with a losing record? If the playing field was truly even, the only logical conclusion is that Jordan was simply better. LeBron probably thought he was being clever, that this was his way of silencing doubters. Instead, he admitted something far more damaging: we had the same advantages, but I still could not produce the same results. Jordan won 6 championships in 6 tries, claiming finals MVP each time. LeBron's multiple super teams, in Miami, in Cleveland with Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving, and in Los Angeles with Anthony Davis have produced 4 titles in more than 10 trips. Even if you play along with his premise, it still ends in disaster. Jordan took his super team and never lost. LeBron has assembled more than one super team over his career, hand-picked rosters to fit his style, and still fell short 6 times on the biggest stage. The reality is, Jordan's team was built the old-fashioned way, drafted, developed, and grown over years, surrounded by role players who knew their job. LeBron's were modern-day creations engineered through free agency, superstar deals, and front office maneuvers meant to tilt the odds. The difference is massive, and this is why the comment is such a self-inflicted wound. LeBron has spent years with supporters defending him by saying he did more with less. Now he has erased the defense with his own words. If Jordan had equal health, then LeBron's finals losses look even worse. What he revealed, without even realizing it, is his own insecurity. The greats do not spend their twilight years chipping away at the ones who came before. Jordan never tried to minimize Magic or Bird, his game spoke for itself. But here is LeBron, years removed from his prime, trying to undercut Jordan's dominance. When Jordan was winning titles, he was taking down actual super teams. When LeBron was winning, he was the super team, and yet, even with those advantages, he could not match perfection. LeBron James, in trying to defend his place in history, may have delivered the most damaging blow to it. In attempting to shrink Jordan's legend, he only made the gap between them look wider. The king wanted to sound sharp. Instead, he reminded the world why Jordan remains the GOAT and why LeBron will forever be chasing that shadow in Chicago.